All right, so let's, you guys can all hear me, so we'll get started. We're going to go through presentation. We're going to actually talk first few minutes about what makes an effective workshop. And I selected a special workshop to make Tex jealous since he wasn't on one of these workshops before. And he, he really wanted to be on this one and he just couldn't make it. Um, so sorry about that, Tex. Um, so I'm going to put this in a full screen mode, and one of the things we talk about in our workshop is you got to look for what workshop is right for you. And some of the things to look for is great photographers are great, but not all great photographers make great teachers. So if you pick a workshop based only on photography skills, you may end up with a teacher who is less than ideal, or who's a great photographer, but his teaching skills may be much left to be desired for. And people who have gone on multiple workshops with different people, if you ever have a talk with them, they will definitely echo those sentiments. The other things are a lot of the workshop vary widely in terms of their physical requirements. Um, some of them will stress endurance. Some of them will be stressing pristine wilderness that has never been photographed before, secret spots. Other people will require you to focus attention on processing, or to focus attention on certain aspects of photography about light. So you need to ask questions as to what makes a good workshop for you. Without these questions, it will be yeah, you can go into the workshop, you can come away with great images, but the actual learning may be something that you may miss out on.
So one of the things that we always recommend is that you don't stop at the website of the photographer, right? Don't just assume that the words that you see on their website, or the words that you see in the advertisement are true. You want to make sure that these people really know what they're talking about. Because if you go out there and you spend all this money and you get there and you realize that this person can't teach, you're just wasting your money and your time. Instead, go in, make sure that you ask the photographer who you can speak to, but go beyond that. Don't just talk to the people that the photographer recommends you speak to either. Go online, look for information about that person. Right now, we live in a digital age. You can go out there, get online and say, "Hey, have you ever heard of this photographer, and have you ever taken a workshop with them?" And chances are you're going to find somebody out there who will tell you the truth about it. Advertising is great, but if you can get reviews from real people, comments from real people, and look on forums, and do a little bit of research, you're going to find yourself in a much better position when you end up out there on the field. I mean, out there in the field. We get emails from people who want to speak to uh, our students. It's not so much about speaking to us. They'd like to speak to us too, but they want to find out whether or not it's worth their money and their time.
So the other thing to look for in a workshop is what is your role as a participant in a workshop? So I have to give you a perspective from, we've been teaching workshops for quite a few years now. And let me give you some perspective. And we will get, in a workshop, you will get clients that have a wide variety of skill sets. So when you go into the workshop, if you go into the workshop saying location, I'm going to be on the location, I'm going to get great shots, and I'm going to go home, it's a very wrong approach to take. When we come to a workshop, one of the first things that will happen for us is we are going to ask participants, what do you want to get out of the workshop? Now, what happens out of a workshop like this is, because we have participants of varying skill level, we will get people saying all the way from, hey, I want to learn about bracketing and blending and advanced light control. And we will get participants in the workshop that will actually say, hey, I just want to know about exposure or composition. Um, so what we try to tell students is when you go into the workshop, make sure that you have an idea of one or two skill sets that you want to get out of. And you have to be focused on those two or three skill sets throughout the workshop, and we will actually help you focus your attention on those skill sets. One of the traps that most students fall into is you have a gorgeous sunset like the one you see on your screen, and people want to shoot towards the sun.
That's a sunrise.
Sunrise, sorry. Okay, sunrise. Wrong planet. So they want to shoot towards the sun. And a lot of times we will tell people that, look, your skill sets are just not there for you to be able to handle the broad range of dynamic light. Instead, we will say that if you want to learn use of filters and effectiveness, shoot away from the sun, 90 degrees from the sun, and we'll point out the reasons for. It is very difficult to fall into a trap looking at an advanced student who's doing all kinds of bracketing to say, oh, if that guy can do it, I can do it. So you as a workshop need, as a participant in the workshop, you need to know your skill level and stay focused on the things that you want to accomplish. If you can't do that, I can guarantee you that you'll come out of workshops thinking, oh, you haven't learned enough.
It's also important to be able to listen to what the instructor says to you. A lot of times we walk into a situation where we have students who know quite a lot, but there are gaps in what they know. And that's probably the most common situation for any photographer. You know a lot, but there's a lot that's missing too. And the problem is you don't necessarily know what's missing. So we we both believe that it's very important to spend some time beforehand, like Jay was saying, thinking about what you know and what you don't know, but then spend the first day or two or the first hours of the workshop um, listening carefully to the instructor, talking with the instructor, and trying to understand exactly what it is that you don't know. Let them know what your weaknesses are, what you think they are, and communicate as much as possible. The more questions you ask, the more honest you are about your own ability level, about what you know, what you don't know, and what you don't understand. If somebody brings something up, talk to the other students. You can find where the gaps are in your knowledge, and we both believe that's really important too. To be able to hear what the instructor's saying, what the other students are saying, and to be able to apply that to your own photography and expand on it. Expand on your understanding not only of what you do know, but also of what you don't know.
And then lastly, there is this question about personality. Um, Oftentimes you'll find that the personality of instructor is better suited for one person as opposed to another person. And a lot of times with one instructor workshop, you will go in there, and if your personalities don't really match up, you will have a tough time. With us, even we find that certain students actually learn better from Marina than me. Other students learn better from me than Marina. And we both have different styles of teaching a little bit. We teach the same material, but our focus is sometimes vary slightly based on who we are talking to and the skill sets of the students that are there. Of course, Tex will agree I'm much better looking and a better photographer because he's been on a few of our workshops before. Um, and but you have to be able to know the personality of the instructor. So if you communicate with the instructor before the workshop, you'll get some idea of their idea of their teaching styles, whether they're informal or very formal, and whether you're comfortable with that or not. Uh, so anyway, so before we go into discussion on what happens in our workshops, I wanted to open the floor up for questioning. Sweetheart, do you have anything to say?
I just wanted to tell Tex that he's awesome. He can't help it. And also, I want to say hi to Karen. I'm glad you made it. um, but no, the I think that one of the greatest strengths that Jay and I have as instructors, we're not really here to plug our um our workshops per se, although that is, of course, the point of everything we do. But, but you know, the reality is that having two people on a workshop not only gives you more one-on-one time, but it also gives you differing perspectives, and we find that that can be very valuable. I've learned more from Jay than from anyone else, and I know that learned he's going to have to say, yeah, okay, I'm just checking to make sure he's going to agree with me in front of people
Just
here. But,
nod.
yeah. But, we both agree that we've learned more from each other than from anybody else. I mean, it really helps to have a different perspective.
All right. So any questions? Feel free to ask any questions you have.
Why does Tamara look happy all the time? Like super happy. Look at that. Crazy.
Can't help it. I'm just a happy
You do
person.
look happy.
I
Uh,
can be sad.
I think she can't help it. Sorry, I'm muted. Okay. So I think that what we're going to do is we're going to actually tell you what happens in 3 days that you spend with us, and what to expect if any of you do come on our workshop. Some of you have come on our workshops, others you haven't. But so first day, when we go on the workshop, we're going to actually get together, and Varina and I are going to get together and scout out the area. And this is pretty important for us. Oftentimes, we will find that, hey, what we expect of to the area is not quite available.
Now, generally, before we teach a workshop, we've visited a location at least twice, almost always more than that. Um, but it's important for us to get there a day early anyway. I mean, there are roads that are closed. There are, the height of the river matters. The terrain, whether or not we've got flowers, that's going to vary year by year, and it's going to make a difference to each workshop that we go on. So we come out, we visit the location once, twice, three times, and then we plan the workshop and we make sure that we have at least a day, often 2 or 3 days before the workshop begins, to make sure we can hit every location we want to visit on that trip. It's very, very rare for us to go to a location we haven't been to before. Um, I think we've done that twice, maybe, in all the workshops we've been on, and it was when we hadn't had a chance to visit a location, but we really did know what to expect from that location because we'd talked to other photographers, we'd done all kinds of research, so we felt a little more comfortable going to those spots. But generally speaking, we don't do that. Katie asks, what are the kinds of things you learn from your students? Wow. um, that's a really big question. Everything. I mean, there are techniques that we've picked up along the way. We have found information about, I mean, maybe one of the most obvious things is how to use cameras that are not your own. That's a big thing. I'll stand there and I'll be looking at a Nikon, and I'll say, okay, well, you need to know how to turn on your live view. I haven't got a clue how to turn on your live view. And so, it gets to the point where I'm starting to feel more comfortable with cameras that aren't my own, different brands and different versions of Canon cameras too. Um, but I think it's well beyond those little techniques and things like that. Those are things you can look up online, or you can look up in a book, or wherever it is. The things that I think are most valuable are the the compositional ideas, or something new and something different. That's when I kind of look at a photo and I go, oh my gosh, I never would have thought to do that with this scene. One of the workshops we were on recently, I pointed out a rock that I thought was particularly pretty. I didn't get a chance to photograph it. Karen here actually took some shots of it, which were gorgeous. And then Robert came in and took some more shots. And looking at his shots, looking at her shots, and seeing in my own mind's eye what I would have done with that rock that I found, but I didn't do. Um, it's fascinating to compare what's in your head with what comes out of someone else's camera, and it's really incredible. So those are the things to me that are the most valuable that I learn from my students. I'll let Jay add to that.
So one of the most interesting perspective about workshop is you'd assume that the advanced students would be concentrating on getting their bracketing right or their technical stuff right, or they're concentrating on using some technical equipment, but that's not the case. Majority of our advanced students who actually know bracketing, who know technical stuff, will tell you that the thing they want to practice most is the ability to see, the ability to be on location and to be able to see things that they would miss otherwise, or what other people are seeing and why they're seeing certain things. That probably, if you ask me what is my greatest deficiency in, is I am always looking for something interesting to see. And like Marina said before, we love the fact that our students teaches us how to see things differently. All right, so going forward, so once we had scouted out things, we will also find out that some of the locations we had actually picked to go on a workshop are closed or not available or under less than ideal conditions. So what we will do is we will have alternate locations at that point in time planned to take the participants in. And then what we will also do is that once the alternate locations are set, um, we're going to go ahead and meet students for the first time in the evening. And when we meet the students for the first time, and I'm going to skip this because what we do is that we will actually go ahead and gather around in a dinner table, and we will ask each and every one of you to introduce yourself, explain what the skill sets are, and then go ahead and ask you, what do you want to get out of the workshop? And having 10 participants, usually they will vary, the answers will vary very widely from very basic stuff to very advanced stuff. And then throughout the workshop, we will actually ask them, students, to focus on those areas. A lot of times you will find that participants can be grouped into one or two categories. And if that's the case, Marina and I will actually go ahead and split the students up into multiple groups.
So so at that point we'll take them out for that first shoot, and we'll talk about composition, we'll talk about hyperfocal distance, we'll talk about camera settings, and that's when Jay and I really start to get a feel for where students are. In terms of what they know and what they don't. So a lot of times I'll take them out and I'll take the group that needs to work on hyperfocal distance. That's something we work on pretty much every single workshop. And a lot of times we find that even if you feel like you're comfortable with it, getting out there in the field and starting to put it into practice is really different from understanding the concept, you know. So we'll take you out. We want you to practice it, and the idea is on that first shoot, the whole point is to get you to the point where you feel like you know where you're headed. You don't necessarily know everything that you need to do, but you know where you're headed. And honestly, Jay and I absolutely dread having a beautiful, perfect sunrise or sunset for that first shoot. That's the fact, because you get out there and you set up your camera and you're fumbling and you're not sure of what you're doing, and then the sky goes crazy and the students go home in the evening feeling stressed out and panicked because they're not sure they got the shot, you know. So we'd really rather have a dud of a sky on that first day, and we want to save the crazy beautiful sky for the last day when everybody's comfortable and everybody's had lots of practice, and then they can go home feeling like they had the best trip ever, right? Unfortunately, we can't order up the skies, so we take what we can get. Um, but the idea is for these workshops that we want students to be able to go home and do the same thing they did on the workshop. So it's not so much about having the perfect sky. It's not so much about having the perfect location. The idea is to be able to do it wherever you are, so that if we're not there, you can still do it, right? And if a workshop is not geared towards sending you home with new skills, sending you home with new knowledge that you can apply somewhere else, find another workshop. It's not worth it. That's my attitude. go on a photo tour. That's a different thing entirely. It's generally a little bit less expensive, and you get the locations, but the instructor is not necessarily there to instruct. I should say that the leader is not there to instruct. They're there to get you to the beautiful places. So that's another important distinction. Know the difference between a workshop and a photo tour. This is something that we talk to techs quite a lot about in past workshops about the difference between a workshop and a photo tour and how important that distinction is. So, do you want to add to that, Jay?
So on the first day, usually, or the days after, we will ask you to get up early in the morning. Usually, fairly much before sunrise, we'll go to the sunrise location. We will shoot the location, and we will do that for all 3 days that are there. So if you're not comfortable getting up early in the morning, well, get comfortable because either you're coming with us or you're going to sleep in. Um, we also, on a workshop, don't
I just want to
expect.
say, sorry, Jay, but yeah,
Go
getting
ahead.
up early is a skill I would like to work on. So,
Oh, trust me, I'll come up bucket of water and come in your room. Michael, don't worry about it. We will make sure that you actually get up. Um, but the other thing that we do is when you do go on a shoot in the morning, we usually make sure that you don't have to hike 3 miles to get to a location. Usually the hiking to a location in the mornings is fairly low, about maybe half a mile, 3/4 of a mile at most. A lot of times the locations are right off the side of the road. The idea of a workshop, at least the ones we teach, is we want to improve your photography skill, not your endurance skills. If you really want to do endurance skills, go to a eco challenge. We really would like you to be there at the camera and be able to practice things like hyperfocal distance and use of filters and balancing compositions and histograms and all other things. Now, one of the things that we will do almost on all workshops, and this drives our students, well, some of our students nuts, is we will pick a location which we call compositional challenge. What is a compositional challenge? Compositional challenge is a location in which it will drive you nuts to come up with a good composition or a good photograph. The idea is for you to be able to see beyond the obvious and come up with something that is different, that is unique, that other people can't see. And this is also one of the places where we actually learn a lot from our students as well. A lot of the students will just absolutely hate going to the compositional challenge because they'll be complaining they don't see anything, and then they'll go home and they'll look on the forums with what other students come up with, and they were like, "Where was I when that happened?" You were standing right next to us. So that is something that we truly believe in. And at the end of the day, once the workshop is over, everybody loves compositional challenge because they couldn't see it, and then all of a sudden they saw other people's photograph and say, "How did I miss that?" Okay.
So part of the idea behind that is to, get a chance to look through other people's viewfinders, see where they're crouching, see where they're setting up their tripod, and try and see through their eyes. You're standing out there and you have 12 or more people with their cameras set up, and you can kind of begin to understand what they're seeing. Talk to each other, talk to the instructors, ask for help, ask for direction. That's what we're there for. And Jay has been known to take people's cameras and set up a shot for them. I'm less likely to do that, but we're both willing to point you in the right direction or point you in a direction. There is really no right direction, right? It's art, but so that's a really great way to learn, and that's one of the things that yeah, yeah, freeze ray gun. Thanks, Michael. But yeah, we we're always trying to help people out in that way.
Right. So we will also look for not only landscape photographs, but we'll also look at some detail shots. We will actually point out
You're
places.
muted.
You're muted.
Thank you. Not only do we look for landscape photographs, but we also look for detail shots. We'll point out things to people that usually something like this, which is like few grains of sand, large, or maybe this little round circle would be as big as maybe smaller than a dime, you can just walk past it and not notice it. So we will point out things that are interesting to shoot at. And this is the kind of things that people love, because if you're on location, you shot sunrise, you just walk past things and you don't necessarily notice it.
Tamara, I think it was Tamara. Yes, Tamara asks, do you have suggestions on lenses to bring? And actually, this photo was just reminding me to mention that. We generally recommend that if you come on a workshop with us, at least, we recommend bringing your widest angle lens, and a macro lens, or a lens with macro capabilities, and then some kind of lens in between. If you have a zoom lens, if you have something to cover that sort of in between range, that's great. Beyond that, if you have a longer lens, fantastic. There's a lot of wildlife in the places that we go, although we don't go specifically to photograph the wildlife, and we don't go out of our way to get you to wildlife. The idea is to learn to photograph nature, and you know, if there happens to be a nice mountain goat standing in front of us, we will definitely take the opportunity to teach a little bit about photographing wildlife, but that's not the direct aim of the trip. Does that answer your question, Tamara? And Katie too?
So what happens about 30 days before the workshop, you will actually receive a long email from us. That email will describe what lenses to bring, what equipment to bring, clothing, any special footwear, how warm, cold, what the sunrise times are, tidal charts if there are any, snow on the mountains if you expect it, four-wheel drive if you have to rent one. We will give you a list of everything that you will actually need or can use on the workshop.
Mostly, we just ask that you read that email. We get a lot of people who don't. So, and then you know, there are lots of questions about what they should, you know, expect, and we point them back to the email. But more importantly, you know, if you don't read what your instructor sends you, our workshops, anybody's workshops, you're going to miss a lot. We've had people ask where we're meeting. You know, everybody's already there, and they're calling us to say, hey, did you guys ever tell us where we're meeting? You know, that's pretty important, that information. So, and it's there. We promise we send that out. So, you know, make sure you read your stuff. Get our phone numbers and get the information that you need. It's all in there.
So we will pretty much on every day we will shoot. We'll stop to take breakfast or lunch. If we don't do lunch for a day, we will ask you to bring a sandwich along, because we'll be out in the field all day. It doesn't happen very often. Of the 3 days, if it was going to happen, it'll probably be only one day of the three. For example, if we were to go to Death Valley and we go to racetrack, we will tell you that, look, we will not be in time for dinner. So bring a sandwich and some snacks and water along with you. Oftentimes, we will go into places in the afternoons where there are detail shots, canyon shots that are available. Believe it or not, this shot that you saw by Christina was taken right in the middle of the day, around like 2 o'clock. And here's a video. Let me see if I can play that for you. Of Sean wrestling in the Paria River. A lot of times the photographs are actually taken.
Go.
So here, listen to the video.
Sean crosses the river.
If only this goes well.
This way,
The
Sean.
problem is the sandbar.
Blow us all a kiss into the camera, and
The sound's not that important.
Go back, start over. No, okay.
You can see though that
this,
he's
This doesn't seem to be. All right,
trying to get out of the river, and the thing that we love about this video is that he
Well, that
stands
was
here
good.
for a minute,
if you just
and he
keep
starts
this on
to
for about
sink.
10 minutes,
You'll be
Yeah,
like
you can
3
see him. He's
feet lower.
sinking, and pretty soon,
Sweet.
watch.
he has a hard
I
time
am
getting
sinking.
out.
I know. I can
This
see
is
it.
one of the spots we love. The
But it
mud,
makes for
though,
boring
is
video.
extremely
no, you'll have
smooth,
to speed it up.
which makes it
Oh, good
extremely
point.
slippery. We had at least 3 people fall while we were there and end up very, very muddy.
Actually, it is
You can
true.
see
If you
Sean
stay
is
still,
sinking and
you
sinking
sink a
in the
lot
mud.
slower.
I think
Yeah.
he ends up almost to
start
his
rocking.
knees.
Wee.
Um,
Yeah.
Start
You're
rocking.
getting lower and lower.
it's pretty funny. Poor guy.
I'm liking it.
But
That's true. You start fighting in quicksand and you're done.
we
That's
don't
right.
actually generally go to
Uh-oh.
places that are
Cheater.
quite this muddy.
Yeah, I knew
but
that rock was 6 feet
it does
down.
happen,
Sneeze.
and
All right,
it's a
now.
heck of
Okay,
a
here we
lot
go.
of
This
fun.
is the good
Poor
part.
Shawnee is
Oh,
shrinking.
come on, Sean, you can
Oh, I
do
don't
it.
wanna
Now you
drop
can see
the
him
camera.
trying to get out of this mud.
You can grab
Whoops,
the camera,
Jay.
but it's more fun if you hold it.
Yeah.
Oh,
There you
kid.
go.
Trying to get out of the mud. He's stuck.
Yay!
But no Shawns were hurt in the making of this video.
Come on, we got another one. Oh, the other one sinks.
Just put
Oh, the camera, be careful.
So the reason I'm showing you this is obviously to go to the place like this, you require special
And
equipment.
he has escaped.
And if you do need special equipment like water shoes or mud shoes, we will tell you in that email to bring them with you. Believe me, when I say that that little area of mud that you saw in here, I have had some of my best shots from that 100-yard stretch of sand and mud that accumulates in Praya River. And it changes every time you go there.
And just imagine wearing your hiking boots and your nice dry wool socks in this muck, right? We always recommend if we're going to a location like this, or if there's any chance that we might end up in a location that's muddy, we'll recommend that you bring water shoes, neoprene shoes, or some kind of shoes that'll keep your feet warm or at least dry. So, you know, all those little recommendations are really important, and they change depending on where we're going. So we try and make sure that you guys are aware of that stuff in advance.
Then finally, in the evening, we will do actually an evening shoot with gorgeous light again, hopefully to get skies like this. And both in morning and evening shoots, we will also practice things like filters and hyperfocal distance, whatever the student needs help in. And we'll, at the end of the day, we will come back and we will actually go back to the hotel, have dinner, and ask you guys to make sure that you get rest. Now, in summer workshop, the evening shoot is reversed. We will have dinner before we shoot in the evening because the evenings usually go pretty late. But we always tell you guys to make sure you guys get rest, because otherwise I'll have to throw 2 buckets of water at Michael rather than 1 bucket next morning. And
the problem is, in a lot of cases, people are so excited about what they photographed, or they want to go and see their photos, that they go back to their room after dinner and they spend 4 hours looking through their photos, and then it's time to get up. So, you know, just let it be. You'll have time to look at the photos another time, mostly when you get home. and from there, you know, we'll deal with that. But get some sleep when you can, because it's that first day, you've got all the adrenaline, you're excited, it's great fun to be out there, and by day 3 you're exhausted. So sleep.
So the next day also starts out in the same way. We will go to a location, we'll do a morning shoot. But oftentimes on next day afternoon, if we get, and on this particular workshop we didn't get a chance to do, is we would, in the afternoon on a second day, usually we will reserve it for a critique section. And what we will do in a critique session is that, if time permits, is we will gather up everybody's images and we will actually mix them up so that nobody knows whose images they are, including our own couple of shots that we may have taken. And then we will ask as a group to critique. Now, why do we do that? Well, it's important for us to analyze other people's images and critique other people's images, because we learn just as much about photographs critiquing somebody else's images as much as we do taking them.
So we ask the students to critique one another's images so that they can pick up, not only pick up information from other people's reviews, but really get involved and think about what they're seeing in other people's images. Sharing those images is really helpful too, because as we said before, you know, you're standing out there, you have an idea of what's in front of you, and when you see somebody else's image from that same location, it can teach you so much about what you didn't see, and sometimes that's as important as what you did see. Generally speaking, these critique sessions are of unprocessed images. Most of the time, the images are straight out of the camera. Maybe somebody had a chance to run it through the raw processor just a little bit. You never know. But the idea is that we're out there and we're 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 trying to learn from other people's photos and trying to trade information and that thought process that's so important.
In the evening, a lot of times we will actually visit or revisit a location. If the location is very interesting to the students, and this was the case in the Paria River, they asked us to say, hey, can we go to that location? We were there this morning, and if the light conditions are acceptable, we will say, sure, we will go to the location again. What this does is a lot of times students will look at each other's images and saying, boy, I missed that, or boy, I wish I had a chance to capture that. And for that particular reason, we will revisit a location so people can have an ability to capture things that they may have missed. Or, but again, that depends on whether the light cooperates or not. Okay, Varina?
Yes, that's the other reason we might return to a location. Jay just touched on it there. If the light is spectacular, we're going to take you to where the light is spectacular, no matter what. If we believe that the sunrise is going to be gorgeous east, we're going to go east. In almost every situation. So if we tell you the night before that the plan is to go to Badwater in Death Valley, and the following morning the light is right over the dunes, be flexible, be ready for it. Things change. We're doing the best we can to keep track of the weather. We're checking it before we leave. We're checking it once we're there. We check it every night, every morning. As long as we can get an internet connection, we are watching the weather. And even when we can't get a weather connection, an internet connection, we're watching the skies, we're watching the humidity levels, we're keeping track of what the clouds are doing. It's constant, and at this point, I think much of it is just built into us because we've done it so often. So we sort of feel like we're out there and we see a cloud and we go that way, go that way, go that way. But that's the other reason we might visit a location more than once is if that's where the light is, that's where we're going. We want you guys to get the best shots that are available. So we're headed in that direction if we can be.
So on the last day of the workshop, we will do a morning shoot. Some of our advanced students are also into night photography, Robert and Sean in particular, and they will do crazy things like get up at 2 o'clock at night and stay up all night trying to take photos of the stars, and they have spectacular night images to show for it. And then they'll meet us next morning to do the morning shoot as well. But after the morning shoot, we'll again get together, and we are going to go ahead and have a group dinner or a group lunch, just like we did a group dinner a couple of days ago. And after that, we will disband the workshop, and a lot of students, in our experience, either stay an extra day or two or visit locations that we didn't get a chance to visit and practice their skills.
So we usually arrive a few days early, but we generally recommend that if you're going to stay a few extra days, that you stay a few days after the trip. And the reason is because then you've gained all that knowledge, hopefully, that you picked up on the trip, and you can use that to your advantage afterwards. So that's generally what we recommend. We get a lot of people asking for location recommendations and suggestions for good compositions and shots. We're more than happy to help you find great places to go. We go to these locations and we scout all over, and we can't take people to as many places as we'd like to. So trust me, there's always somewhere that we didn't get to take you and we think you should go. So, just ask. We're willing to share that.
And then the last day, on this particular workshop, our students stopped by at Zion and took a lot of photos while we were there. We ran into a few of them, and we had to catch a plane. So we headed to Vegas, stopped by at Valley of Fire right before we caught a plane. But at the end of the workshop, what happens is when we go home, each workshop participants gets invited to our forums. And in the forums, we ask you guys to post photos. And if some of us don't post photos and make up excuses of eye trouble, like some people we know, uh, yeah, we make them post photos anyways. But what happens in the forums is you've heard me say quite a few times on G Plus or any other open critique forum that I rarely critique anything. Even if I don't like your photos or if I can suggest something for improvement, I will rarely say anything. In the forums, you can expect me to say what I think should be happening to the photo. So if I don't like the photo, if the photo is not good, you'll hear it. It's not good. If you've done processing which sucks, you'll hear it. The processing sucks. And the idea is you guys have paid us enough money to make sure that we develop your skills all the way from being able to see in the field, being able to capture images, and be able to process it. And we are probably the only workshop that I know of, I don't know if anybody else knows of, that actually gives you access to the forums and will give you feedback for next 2 to 3 weeks on your processed images, as well as we will actually tell you what changes to make. Sometimes I will post a PDF, a Photoshop file with layers included that will show you the changes that are necessary. Varina will do the same thing. Even our other students who are gone on other occasions will do the same thing. And you will gain more out of this forum, trying to get details and shots out of your images than you would by just stopping at the workshop, going home, and then looking at the camera and saying, man, these photos that I took look great on back of my camera, but it really doesn't look anything like that. Or how do I combine two of these photos? Or what white balance do I use? And we have one participant in a workshop that keeps sending us props everywhere we go. So you see all those cowboy hats that you see in the picture? There's one guy who always sends us props. Even if he doesn't come to the workshop, he actually sends us props like mustaches like Marina's wearing. And our job is to be actually able to put those props on and send him a photo. And he's done that for past, I don't know, 6, 7 workshops, right, Tex?
And for those who don't know who he is, there he is down there. Well, on my screen, he's down there at the bottom. That's Tex. And he needs to get a life. No, he doesn't. He has a life. We love it. We always get a really fun photo. So on this trip, you can see we had our cowboy hats, and on the last one, he sent us all mustaches, which were really nice. Thinking about growing a mustache now. Thanks, Tex.
All right, so that brings us to the end. I was going to ask if you guys have any questions. Boy, you're a quiet audience.
I have one question. I actually missed it. I came in on the tail end. There was a mention of the difference between a photo tour and a photo workshop. Could I just get you to kind of briefly go over that?
Yeah, maybe other people want to put some input in as well, but generally the difference is that for a photo workshop, the expectation is that the instructor is going to be available to answer questions. There will be teaching or instruction involved. A workshop, the assumption is that you'll be working in the field or in a classroom, and you're going to be learning new skills. A photo tour, on the other hand, is generally a tour. The instructor is not so much an instructor as a guide. They're there to bring you to the beautiful locations, or get you to the wildlife, or get you to the interesting photos, and then they'll step back and let you do your thing. They're not there to teach. They might answer questions here and there. They might give a little bit of guidance, but generally the idea is that once you're on location, you're on your own. Does that answer the question?
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Does anybody else want to add to that?
Let me add something, Jim. Darwin Viget. I don't know if you know him. You should just look up his name. He's a pretty fantastic photographer in
Is
Canada.
it Darwin Wiggins?
Yeah, Viget actually.
Oh, Viget, yes.
Yeah, Darwin does both photo tours and photo workshops. The way Darwin will run his photo tour is he will bring you to a location and he will be gone. He will be out hiking, taking photographs, and then he will meet you like 2, 3 hours later at the same location, pick you up, and then take you another. And that is called photo tour. Usually the prices for photo tour are much lower, about 40%, 50% lower. But then there's no expectation of any instructions or anything like that. It's just all about location and light.
All right, so we have, let's see, when will you be doing a workshop in North Carolina? When will you do a New England or Teton workshop? Um, we don't know. Um, we try and plan our workshops about a year in advance. This year we were actually really hoping to do a Teton workshop, but uh, come, we ended up with some opportunities in other places. We'll be in Patagonia planning for future workshops. We have a trip now back to Iceland in hopes of possibly putting together a workshop there.
I
And
can't
at
believe you
some
want to go back.
I know. It's because I'm crazy. But no, so many trips came up this year, and there was so much travel involved that we decided we could only pull off two um, workshops this year. We'll do other things. We're speaking in San Francisco this year at the Photographic Society of America convention. So that's going to take some time. We're planning some photo walks and things like that. But where we'll do our next workshops, I don't know. I really don't. I'm so